produces enzymes to help digest our food. Okay? It produces bile, which is a special enzyme that can break down fat. Okay? But we also, did you get this one down?
Yeah.
Okay, so liver also helps clean our blood. Moves poisons, break down toxins. But the liver makes bile, but then it sends that bile actually to a storage area, to an area called the gallbladder. The gallbladder basically stores up the bile until it's needed. So if I look at this liver here, this is the liver from this model, underneath here, this green thing, that is the gallbladder. So the liver sends the bile into the gallbladder, kind of inflates and stores it until a person needs it, until a person eats a meal, and then the gallbladder sends that bile into the small intestine to work on digestion. Some people do get their gallbladder removed, and that's okay, because when a person does have their gallbladder removed, the liver will send bile directly into the small intestine. It just won't be stored up. And so this bile goes from the gallbladder to the small intestine through a duct, a tube called the bile duct.
Why is the small intestine longer than the large intestine?
It's longer, but it's narrower, so that's why it's called small. It's because of the diameter, not the length. All right, so then another organ, the pancreas, is another organ which releases digestive enzymes. It's up here, kind of tucked behind the stomach a little bit. We also talked about it does produce insulin, but its other function is to release some enzymes into the small intestine. Here you can see the ducts that carry that into the small intestine. And again, they're to help digest various types of material in the small intestine. All right, so as food moves along through the small intestine, it's being further broken down. It takes a little while and it has to go a pretty long distance, 25 feet or so. It's getting moved along there through peristalsis of the intestinal muscles, which move it along. But as it gets broken down, our body can then absorb nutrients from that food. Okay? And it does that. We also add that too. We talked about it with the endocrine system, but it does create insulin. So the lining of the small intestine, actually we talked about this when we went over diffusion, because one thing that can increase the rate of diffusion is what? Heat and pressure. Surface area. The greater surface area for molecules to move through, the more diffusion will take place. So if the small intestine were just like a smooth, hollow tube, it wouldn't have a very large surface area. But it's not a smooth, hollow tube. It has all these bumps and ridges inside of it, which add a tremendous amount to the surface area of the small intestine. They're called villi, these bumps. They're tiny projections, and inside of them are blood vessels that are going to absorb the nutrients from the foods that we eat. And those villi, they even have bumps on them called microvilli. So by the time the food completely leaves the small intestine, all of the nutrients have been absorbed. All the useful stuff is into our blood, circulating throughout our body. And what's left over is basically material that couldn't be digested. Okay? We don't digest all the material that we eat, especially fiber, cellulose from the cell wall of plant cells. We are unable to digest it. In fact, no animals can digest it. It's very resistant to digestion. That's what we call fiber. It's non-digestible material that our body can't use and can't break down. So it continues traveling through the small intestine and then moves into the large intestine. Okay? Large intestine is, again, it's wider than the small intestine, but much shorter. The large intestine basically just goes up, across the abdomen, down the other side, and out of the body. Okay? And the large intestine, its job is, as that undigested material is moving through, that chyme is moving through, it absorbs some of the water from it. It conserves that water so we can use it in our body. as that undigested food moves through the large intestine, also cells from inside of our digestive tract are added with it. Bacteria from inside the digestive tract are in there as well. The water gets reabsorbed, and that forms feces, solid waste. But there's actually no further digestion taking place in the large intestine. Everything's already been fully digested. That could be. And eventually that solid waste leaves the body through the colon, the rectum, and out through the opening called the anus.
I'm assuming that like whatever you drink goes through the same pipe as what you eat, but wouldn't the acid like affect that?
Not really. It would still break down if there's starches in that, what you're drinking. But mostly things that you drink have already simple compounds in it, simple sugars. So most of those your body can absorb pretty quickly
Like
without
What
digestion.
if you drink like water or something?
Water just goes through the digestive system. Some of it gets absorbed in the small intestine and the large intestine and goes into circulation. Now sometimes the large intestine does not fully absorb all of the water as it normally would, and that leads to an issue. Diarrhea, right. It's caused when there's excess water in that solid waste, and depends the reason why that may happen varies. Sometimes if a person is sick or like had food poisoning or something, it's actually an adaptation. Your body is saying, all right, I don't really care about the nutrients in the food. Something bad is in me. I need to get this stuff out. And that may lead to vomiting, may lead to diarrhea. Okay? The opposite is also true. If there's too little water left in the chyme after it moves through the large intestine, that is what leads sometimes to constipation. So both responsible for regulating the amount of water in that. Yeah. D? That's coming up next in the excretion section, so I'm going to save the E for later on. What's so funny? Stop laughing or you're in trouble. That was classic.
Your jokes suck.
That was great.
Yeah, you saw him.
You guys set me up perfectly for it. Yeah, right? All right.
Is it every class, or are we the only class to that joke?
I use that joke all the time, yeah. All right, I got the biggest laugh out of you guys, though. You guys must have the best sense.
No, you got the biggest stairs.
No, we just don't want to hurt your
All right, let's label this diagram. So we did it as our question today. Food starts in the mouth through the esophagus.
Well, that's how you spell it out.
Yeah, it's a pH, not an L.
I spelled it with an A.
I've never spelled it before.
Esophagus. All right, then it goes through the stomach, small intestine, and large intestine. Along the way, the liver is one of the organs that adds enzymes to the digestive tract for digestion. Gallbladder's involved, and so is the pancreas. All right. Any question about the digestive system? Did I give you guys the excretory notes? That section?
No.
No?
He doesn't care about us as much as period 2.
No.
I'm in our period 2 tomorrow.
They have it right.
Yeah, but Will. Yeah, Mr. Duress is going to be here tomorrow.
Mr. Dearest, I'll be in period 2 tomorrow. Should someone let them do their homework in class period 2.
Yeah.
I know, right? What? Remember the other day how the sub made us read it together?
Oh,
We
yeah.
used to do our homework in class. I'm sure the sub, I'm sure period 2.
Digestive, excretory, respiratory.
Wait, respiratory?
Maybe. I'm not sure. All right. let's move on. Today I want to finish excretory, and then I will show you the digestive video. Did we watch the digestive video of the food going through? Oh, we gotta get to that one. So let's hurry up here.
You're already falling.
Excretory system. The excretory system, the word comes from excretion, getting rid of waste. Okay? And the excretory system gets rid of carbon dioxide as well as metabolic waste from our cells, nitrogen, urea, things like that. The main, one main organ of the excretory system are the kidneys. Okay, which we have two of, a left and a right kidney. When you look at this model, they're way towards the back of our abdomen. They're almost on each side of the spine, and they're very important. You need the waste removal of the kidneys in order to stay alive. The kidneys are not able to remove waste from our blood, these toxins. They could build up in your blood, making you very sick and eventually becoming fatal. So they remove these toxins and they transform them. They mix these waste substances with water and they form urine.
Ew.
Now, if a person has some sort of kidney disease, if one kidney fails and is not working, they can live just fine with a single kidney. One kidney can do the job of the other and they'll be perfectly healthy. But if both kidneys fail, then there's a problem because those waste products in the blood are not being filtered out, they build up and then basically poison a person. So when a person has a kidney disease in which neither kidney is working, they may go for dialysis treatment, if you've heard of that. Dialysis treatment is basically have to go to the doctor's office, the hospital every single day. They go and they sit in a chair, they hook up to a dialysis machine which takes out their blood, filters it artificially and puts it back into them, sort of filtering out much of those toxins to keep them alive. But that's not a long-term solution. What is a long-term solution?
Kidney replacement?
Yeah, a kidney transplant. Most people, where their kidneys have stopped functioning or are no longer going to work, would be looking for a kidney transplant because you can take a kidney from one person and transplant it into a person that's sick, and that kidney can then work, keeping them healthy. Sometimes it's done from a healthy person to a person that's sick. So if I have a relative that needed a kidney transplant, I may donate one of my kidneys because I can survive just fine on one. When they got the kidney transplant, if it worked properly, then they would be fine and survive on one.
But then you're
So sometimes it happens
I know, but then
like that, Caleb. Other times, a person may be an organ donor, and when they pass away, they may have said, I would like to donate some of my organs that are going to be useful to somebody. And so they may then take, when someone passes away, if they're an organ donor, they may take their kidneys and give one of them each to somebody that's in need. And other organs as well can be transplanted. Heart can be transplanted, lungs can be transplanted, eyes can be transplanted. So there's all sorts of organs that can be useful. So that's how a person gets better if their kidneys are completely failed. All right, Nicola?
aren't there some people with like abortion kidneys?
I'm not sure about that. Some sure, but I'm not exactly sure.
There's only one.
I don't know. A person can be born with just one kidney. No?
That's what I was gonna say. Is it possible for people to be born with only one kidney?
I think sometimes people are born with a single kidney, and they're okay as long as it's a functioning kidney. Not that I know of. Emma?
What if like someone donates one of their kidneys to someone and they put out their kidney?
Yeah, then they would have to get a transplant.
So they got also got.
Yeah, they would have to get another transplant.
I'll watch
Yeah,
that.
Cormac?
Well, two things. One, isn't there this thing that like people mug you and steal your kidneys?
No, that's just all lifestyle.
Hey,
Urban legend.
And,
no kidding, I'll watch it.
you give like a blind person new eyes, will they be able
It
to
depends
see?
on the region for their blindness. Depends on, it's not always just a problem with the eye, it could be neurological.
Can you do that if you just hate your eye color?
Sidra?
Like that.
We're contacts.
Yeah.
I'm for color.
Yeah.
What's up?
All right, so the
Why would
kidneys
you share that?
filter out the kidneys filter out these toxins, these poisons from the blood. They mix them with water, and they produce urine. That urine then sort of forms a constant drip through a tube called the ureter, which leads to the urinary bladder. This is a picture of like a cross-section of a kidney. So basically what you have is you have blood coming into the kidney in this artery, loops around inside the kidney, dangerous materials are removed, water is reabsorbed, and then the urine goes down, and then the filtered out blood can then go back into circulation now that it's had those toxins removed. This urine drips into the bladder, which is basically sort of like a balloon that's sort of flexible, can expand, it fills up with urine. When it's sealed at the bottom with two muscles, sphincter muscles, that sort of keep it closed until once it starts to get full, then nerves send a message to a person's brain telling them that their bladder is filling up and they need to use the bathroom. And then eventually, once they find that bathroom, their brain relaxes those sphincter muscles, emptying the bladder, and the path that the urine takes out of the body goes through a single tube called the urethra. It's like the famous singer Urethra Franklin. Ever heard her?
Yeah, I feel bad tonight.
Oh,
Actually,
I feel bad now.
It's not actually her name. It's Aretha.
Sharifa.
I
Do you
call
remember
it
Sharifa
urethra.
from soccer?
She was my best friend in preschool.
All right, so this is how wastes are removed from the body and eliminated. Now, also the kidneys make adjustments. If you have plenty of water in your body and you're well hydrated, your kidneys add more water to the urine. If you're dehydrated, your kidneys understand this and they keep more of the water inside and only send smaller amounts into the urine. And that's why if you're well hydrated, your urine is clear, and if you're not, then it's darker in color. Corin?
how long does it take to digest food and water?
Water doesn't get digested, it gets absorbed. But food gets digested over a period of about, I don't know.
Half an hour.
45 minutes?
No.
Well,
In total, all the way through the digestive system,
yeah, so you don't.
18, 24 hours.
No.
Noah?
What's the darkest urine?
There are different diseases when urine can turn different colors.
Rainbow.
Also, is anybody a big fan of asparagus?
I am.
If you're a big fan of asparagus, then you probably have noticed that after eating some asparagus, several hours later, there is a chemical reaction that takes place, causing one's urine to have a very distinctive odor. Rainbow? It doesn't change the color, it does change the odor.
How long does it take from like water to like go all the way down? 20 minutes?
I like it too much though. I like broccoli too much.
All right, so if we look at sort of a diagram showing how the kidney works, the cells produce waste, which goes into the kidney. It goes into the blood, which enters the kidney. Kidney filters out the waste, making urine. Then the clean blood is able to go into circulation.
Did you draw that?
No. Skin. The skin is also considered an excretory organ because as you sweat, you're not just having water coming out of sweat glands, they're also a mixture of salts and other waste products that come out of the skin. That's why if you're, outside running or playing a sport, sweat gets in your eyes and burns because of the salt that's mixed in with that water. Or if you're outside and you run a long race or you're playing soccer for a couple hours, once the sweat evaporates, what's left on your skin? White, salty stuff. That's the salts because the water's evaporated. You play baseball in your baseball cap.
Oh yeah, it's all
That's all
white.
you take
It's
off.
all white.
Crusty white stuff. Those are the salts that are left over from your sweat.
Or when you after like a football game, you take off like the rib guard, it's all like dry and.
And also, so here's my idea I came up with today.
Oh god.
So you know what sea salt is?
Yeah.
So you take seawater, you put it in a container, you evaporate it, you're left with salt that you then can use on your food and so.
No, that's disgusting.
So I'm going to come up with human excretory salt, where you can collect salt from people, sweat from people, evaporate the water, and use those leftover salt crystals on your spaghetti or on popcorn.
I got you.
I'm going to be going on Shark Tank next week. All right. Our lungs. We want like human excretory salt in your popcorn. I bet
Yeah,
it had an interesting flavor to your popcorn.
Dude, it'll taste like iron.
Don't call him dude, he's your teacher.
They're part of both. The lungs are part of the excretory system because they do remove waste, carbon dioxide waste. So as blood goes through the alveoli of the lungs, which we'll talk about in our next unit, they release their carbon dioxide, which we then exhale. So it's getting rid of waste. That is part of the excretory system as well. Yeah, Corey?